Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry is the culty church that I joined out in Redding, California, and now I'm going to talk about the infamous speaking in tongues. If you're not familiar with speaking in tongues, it is essentially a holy language between you and God, so it sounds a lot like gibberish. You are making a lot of sounds that other people don't really understand and you don't really understand, but it is a language between you and God. I know some churches, they try to interpret the tongues, so that's kind of interesting. I went to a church one time where somebody would go speak in tongues and then they'd say, "Who in the audience has the interpretation?" And somebody would be like, "God told me the interpretation." So then they would run up, so you would have this side, and you would get the message of what God was trying to tell that person in the secret gibberish language. A lot of you guys have been asking me about my beliefs now. I'm going to do a further video on that towards the end of it because it will make a lot more sense, but I am still a Christian. I'm just more of a progressive Christian at this point, and I kind of low-key hate all of this charismatic Christianity stuff. I'm very burned by it, so I don't really enjoy it. But if you are wondering if I spoke in tongues, technically, yes. Do I think it was real? No. The first time I tried to speak in tongues was right after the Heidi Baker thing that got me into Bethel in the first place. So I was hanging out with my family. We had just watched The Finger of God, and they were trying to get me to speak in tongues. And I was 17 at the time, and they told me, I totally forgot about this the other day until Mackenzie reminded me, but they told me to go into a room and to not come out until I was speaking in tongues. And guys, the shame of when I came out of that room and I was like, didn't happen, guys. And it was low-key really embarrassing. So when I got to Bethel, most people were speaking in tongues. So I really wanted to speak in tongues. Bethel taught that if you had been baptized in the Holy Spirit, then anybody can speak in tongues. So there definitely was this fake it till you make it kind of vibe. I had heard from a few different students that you just had to get over the hurdle. You just had to get over the hurdle of starting, and then God would meet you where you were at. So I had a roommate who was like, "You will speak in tongues tonight." So we were laying on her floor and she was like, "Okay, we're going to do this. You're going to speak in tongues." And I was like, "Okay, I'm prepared for the mission, right?" And she's like, "Just start talking." And I was like, "Start talking what? I don't speak in tongues." And she's like, "Just start making noises and then it'll come and God will meet you. Like you're going out in faith and God is just going to come and meet you where you are and you will be speaking in tongues." So guys, I just started doing it. And was it real? No. Okay, but can I show you guys a picture of basically what my tongues sounded like? This was low-key me speaking in tongues. People are like, "What did it sound like?" It sounded like Harry Potter, like a girl who was raised reading books about Hogwarts. So let's just laugh at it because it is what it is. A lot of these charismatic circles are very, very into speaking in tongues. I know I've had a lot of people commenting about IHOP. I did go to their One Thing conference one year and I still wasn't speaking in tongues at that point. And they had a whole thing for speaking in tongues too. Like a whole go to this room and we're going to get you activated in the spirit. So there is this fixation for speaking in tongues. Is there a purpose? Like, I don't know. I guess unless you're interpreting, but a lot of these people are not interpreting. They're just like making noises. And yeah, I did speak in tongues like during worship and stuff. And looking back on it now, I'm like, because to be honest, I never felt holy when I was doing it. I never was like, this feels right. I was just going with the flow. So next, I want to talk about how the Bethel students would really terrorize the citizens of Redding. I have gotten comments from people who are in Redding and people messaging me. And yeah, I do want to talk about the tormenting that goes on from the Bethel students, like pestering them. And there was a time where we completely had like one of those crazy fire tunnel type things going on in a pizza place on a Friday night. And it was so cringe. So follow for the next part.